So, lifers, really hasn't been a whole lot going on. You may hear in the background the wind is howling outside right now, and it's gotten kind of crappy. And when it's nice out, or I mean, when it's nice, the sun's actually out, the wind is howling, and with every beginning, there is an end. And I think we've come across that time. It's been really slow on the grounds that we kind of had, how do I put this? We kind of went off on a house tangent for a couple weeks. There was property real close to us that we had our eye on for a long time. Saw an auction sign go up in front of it, and we thought, yeah, this is ours. And I'll admit it, for a while there, I was thinking this was ours. And the house had the foundation was collapsing due to or part of the foundation was collapsing due to a tree. There was holes in the roof. It's been abandoned for about 7 or 8 years. I mean, it was one of those properties, and we thought we were going to get into it at a certain number, and we were sadly mistaken. And I mean, I did a lot of research too. I was trying to figure out, the well was bad, the septic system's bad, the counties have changed all the regulation. What my well out here used to be 80, it's not used to be, but it's 80 feet deep. That was considered a deep well in this area. Now they require a well of 420 some feet. So I mean, we did all our research. We had to do title searches. We did everything that you really have to do when you're going after a property like this. And I would suggest, if anybody's doing something like going to an auction, you get online and start looking up what you need to know about. I mean, I've heard of people buying not the first mortgage, but the second mortgage. And there's still a first mortgage on the house that the bank has to be satisfied on. I mean, that stuff is kind of like extremely rare, but it happens. So like I said, if you're going to do this, you really need to watch your P's and Q's. And I feel like sometimes the more I learn, it's like a lot of things. The more I learn about it, the less I feel like I know about it. So, like I said, an auction was new for us. Most of our other deals in the past had just been through either agents or, I mean, HUD was trying to unload a house a while back. What else? One was a private deal. I mean, just a friend of a friend of a friend, it was like, hey, did you bought that other house down there? Would you be interested in ours at like even a lesser discount? I was like, oh, hells yeah. So, I mean, I'm not a housing tycoon by a long shot, but I usually can see potential. I mean, I've been in the business since I was like 17, and I ain't telling you how old I am. And in one shape or another, and I can kind of see an eye for things. And then even with Zillow and such, you can easily just look at comps in the area, see what's sold, all this other stuff. I mean, all right, I'm gonna make this a long story short here. Basically, we got our asses spanked. I mean, the flippers I mean, the numbers didn't lie. I mean, I don't blame them for taking it. It ain't like they paid an exorbitant amount for the house, but for the condition it was in, they paid a lot of damn money for this house. And I mean, put it this way, it was a $105,000 should be bulldozed house on a .17 acres of land that had a bad well, a broken basement, wall, needed a lot of tree service. There was no electrical service to the house. It was disconnected at the pole, and all the wires were taken down. I mean, the well was bad. $100,000 for this place, .17 acres. Now the comps in this area for that house, I would say the house is worth about $240 total. I mean, with the numbers, they have a lot of room to move. I mean, but there wasn't that much. I mean, again, I'm just dumbfounded. But again, long story short, we wasted, or I shouldn't say wasted. I mean, like I said, you've got to do your due diligence. But we kind of sidestepped our whole lives for a few weeks here, and just came up empty in the end. Which, life works in mysterious ways, and maybe there was a reason. I guess I'll find out, being they only live down the street now. But as I said, with every beginning, there has to be an end, or at least a beginning to an end. But in our case, the weather's miserable, and today it's kind of warm out, but it's windy as hell. So I'm going to go ahead and winterize a couple boats here. We got our dryers out. I may not get to all of them, but you know, when you have 5, you like to kind of break them up if necessary. So I'm going to go get started on that. For our dryers, when we put in our sub panel here, along with our 220 and a couple other heavy duty plugs, we do have outside GFCI plugs, but we decided over here at the doorway we are going to install this one down here, which does all of these. So now we have 6 GFCI plugs right beside the door, and that really helps out a lot when you got 5 boats to plug in. Winterizing would be a bit more of a pain in the ass if I hadn't been running stay-ball for the last couple fill-ups in these boats, all of them. It's just something that I figured that was going to be coming up eventually. You know, you get sidetracked like on this guy here with shifter linkage. You know, one day turns into 5, turns into 7, you know, and as it goes. So I've already run the stay-ball on them, so I don't actually have to start them or anything. All I really need to do is to pull the plugs in the rear of the manifolds on this guy. I always take the water pump hose off so the water pump can drain, and finally pull the block drains, and that should take care of this one. And wham bam, thank you Bam, that's all done. A couple block drains, a couple manifold drains, and sprayed a little rust inhibitor around on the carburetor, you know, stuff that likes to sit around and get kind of crusty. Our electrical connections, just to make sure everything's cool. Got our dryer in here finally, and not ready to plug it in yet, but it'll be sitting there so we don't have to actually uncover the boat to do it. We've had some dry weather the last few days. I like to give it any chance it can to bring the humidity level down in the boat overall before we click the dryer on and try to keep it set at that level. So off to the next one. And just like with the Donzi, pulled our block drains down here. This time though, there is no manifold drain, so we actually have to pull the hose here and take the fitting and turn it upside down, and that drains that. From there, we pull our water pump hose out, it drains, nothing's going to happen there, and then we spray it down with a little rust inhibitor on our electrical fittings and such that cause some issues. We do shut off our gas and make sure our batteries shut off over there also, but that's just click click push. And then we got our dryer in over here, and we stage our cord accordingly for when we are ready to use it, and we're all set. I know a lot of you are thinking we're missing some steps, and for some of you, yes we are. And if you got you know, closed cooling systems and stuff like that, yeah. As I said a long time ago in race boat life, I talked to a guy from Alaska and asked him how they did it, and he said, we drain them. So that's what we do. We flush every time we use it, make sure everything's done. As I said, we were already run stay-ball in all of these boats just because we knew the end was coming, and that gives it plenty of time, and whatever's in the tanks plenty mixed up from bouncing around out on the water, and it's been run through the whole system no matter what, so we're good there. And in our case, it's just get the water out and cover them up and put the dryers in them. One final thing we do with these exposed motors is we have built these little tarps here out of course one of those big blue tarps, but we've used our stitching skills here so we can make little, I don't know, 8-foot square versions of them. And it doesn't happen in these boats over here like the Donzi and the 19. They've actually got enclosed motor boxes. But of course the BZ's wide open, and you might as well say the 24 kind of is too. And if you remember back in the beginning of race boat life, I was taking these off. When I didn't use them, it was a whole lot worse than when I do use them. So now I use them. Alright, with the Donzi and the BZ done, we're going to skip the 19 for now. There's always a chance something may break and we have a beautiful day, and I'd hate to have it already put away, because it's not that hard to unput away, but then you got to unput it away again, you know, and that just kind of like takes the life out of it. But when it comes to the 24, we're probably going to attack it from bow to stern this time. Even though there's two motors, there's no reason to separate out, do this one to that one, and then do that one to the next one, and then go back. I'm going to just start in the bow, pull the water pump hose, start pulling plugs in the manifolds and blocks, and then I like to pull the hose for the transmission coolers and stuff like that also, because it just, the way it sits, the water will pocket up in the hose there, and you know, those coolers are kind of fragile. I don't need to have water in any of my components that doesn't need water and where it should be. So off to the next one. Now on the 24, things are a little different. Just because of the way the cooling system's set up, we go ahead and we pull our hose for our water pump, you know, the motor's water pump, and then we also pull the hose, the bottom hose, for the raw water pump. And the reason is because there is so much water in these lines. I mean, they go all the way back to the strainers and then on the way back to the transom, which is actually about 20 feet away. So we like to make sure they're pulled. Then of course we also pull our manifold drains and our block drain down there. And one last thing we like to do is we pull this hose right here. This is our transmission cooler. The reason for that is the way the boat sits in the driveway and the way the motor sits on the boat. This back here makes a loop, in which case there's always like water sitting in here because it's like the lowest spot. And with that cooler right there, you know, again, those things are extremely fragile, and I've had bad experiences with those guys in the past. And that's a brand new one to this motor, and I haven't had any bad experiences, knock on aluminum here, and I'd like to keep it that way. So I always pull that one hose because I just feel like there's going to be water trapped in there, and I know it has movement and it can move around. It's not like, you know, stuck in a crack or something like that, but up in there there's so many little tiny tubes, you know, and something could get jammed up, and all it takes is one tube with one crack and you've got water in your transmission fluid. But next we go on to the V-drive. The V-drive's self-dumping, so there's nothing in it, but we have to actually go back to where the strainers are and drain them, and then move on back to the rear motor, and hopefully it goes as easy as this one. But before we get back there, we have to finish spraying up our carburetor here. Even a little bit on that aluminum to make that look pretty come springtime. The nice thing about this stuff is it tends to come off with some good soap and water, so it doesn't actually leave a nasty residue like a lot of them do. Before we get back to the C strainers there, one thing I did want to do is take our overly expensive filter here and shove it down in this dog. But I want them to all stand straight up, so hopefully that'll be the way to do it. And poof. Alright, there we go. We got our stuffing down in there. That should stop any slosh or anything from happening. It's got about, I don't know, a ½ inch between it and the top too, so if things get out of hand. And I cleared out the vent hole to make sure the screen in it was full of like fluid, so anything pressure that would have pushed up on this, even just from like maybe some steam or something, the out drive there, and it would have actually pushed whatever was in the screen through. So we cleared that out also, just so we can give it a fresh start, because the fresh start will come next spring. So we might as well start off on a good foot. Now, off to the sea strainers. And with a couple more squirts of the magic elixir and a custom winter blankie, and we're ready for the long sleep. Okay, we've got our dryer set up. I'm going to try something a little different this year. I've got this kind of plasticky with a felt back tablecloth here. I'm going to lay this on top of the seat before I put the cover on. See if that helps to stop the mold infection. I hope you all heard that. That was sick. And whoever's out there in this, oh my God, they got balls so big it's a wonder the boat floats. Insane. Okay, 24 is away. The only thing left is the 19, and as I said, we're gonna keep that for emergencies. Never know when a super nice emergency day comes up. But until then, what are you doing, Shorty? You come by to say goodbye too? I don't think you're going anywhere, are you? Sneaking in for lunch? Why are you being so obtuse? Are you leaving? Hey lifers, I'm just sitting there fooling around with this speaker project I got going on, and just repainted the faces black from a pretty sad 70s brown. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this paint, and I've already got it mixed up with the Rust-Oleum and the hardener here and everything, and I've got extra, and I'm sitting here thinking, what can I do with this? What can I do with this? Then it dawns on me, even though it's a little chilly outside, there's a bottom that needs a little touch-up paint from our last excursion. So even though it's cold as crap out here, and there's a good chance that the paint would freeze if it didn't have the hardener in it, why not? And a little bit here. Now you can kind of see why I didn't bother to paint the bottom the same color as the rest of the boat. I didn't think it was going to stay that way. And I couldn't touch up the red like I can with the black. The black will blend in, but the red would never in a lifetime. So this works out for me. And lucky enough, I got to use what was left of my Rust-Oleum twice. So I got double usage out of it, because it's going to go off here in another couple hours and it'll be hard as a rock. And I think that's it. Oh, no, we got one little spot left right here, right in the nose, and wouldn't that be expected, but everything we hit out there. Get this guy right here. Right there. And there we go. Got a little jump on spring already. If I'm running around outside with orange cords with a winter coat on, it's either Christmas or the finalization of winterizing. And sadly, it's the second of the two. Alright, everything under the motor box is winterized and drained and rust inhibited and all that good stuff. We've got our dryer up there already plugged in. We'll leave the hatch open a little bit, let some air circulate from underneath. It's time to cover it up. So, Special Assistant Jack,
What do you want?
what happened to you?
I got my ankle destroyed. What does it look like?
So his season is over.
Yep.
Football,
Rest in peace.
boating.
It's winter anyway.
Say goodbye.
No ice fishing this year.
No ice fishing, that's it. Say goodbye.
Bye.
And last but not least, gotta plug the race boat in. It's kind of like where we started at, except on the other side of the boat. I gotta say, it's been a fun year. Didn't seem like it at times, but you know, now that I'm looking back at it here, there's hardly any leaves on the trees, and it's kind of, I'm out here in my winter coat and my long hair again. I look back on it now and I kind of miss those days working on it, even when things weren't going right, because it was a whole lot nicer than it is out now. But I guess it's time to give this area over to the winter people. I don't understand you folks. But there is some, and they like their seasons, and I kind of like my 4 seasons too, but it does kind of put a damper on things when you finally think that you got things going. I mean, we got all 4 of them right up at the top of the notch. I mean, I'm not saying there's not other things we need to do, but you know, when I started this summer with everything was iffy and everything needed major repairs before even wanting to take out for just a ride around the basin, come a long way this year. And I want to thank you all for joining me. It's been fun filming this, I gotta say. It's been a different world. You get a whole new perspective on people who do this stuff. You know, you think, oh, you just filmed a little video, why don't you do this, why don't you do that, why don't you do this? Well, I've been there now, so I'm not going to talk about anybody else's videos. If you actually can get it captured, I don't care. Except for the iPhone thing. If you're going to film, don't film like this. Film like this. But besides that, I think over and all it's been pretty cool. But speaking of cool, it's pretty cool out here right now, so I think I'm done and I'm on my way out. Thanks again, everybody. I really do appreciate you watching and following along, and it's only a matter of months we get to start it all over again. See ya. Where do we start? Where do we start? Well, alright, lifers. Alright, for later we'll do this. Let's do this again. And wham. Again, I jumped the gun. I've been doing this for what, 50 episodes? So, lifers. So, okay, the motor box. And pull the block drains, he said once. And pull the one last thing we do that, stay down there. One thing we do, no, that's it, stay down there. All right, with the BZ and 2 motors and a whole lot of fluids flying everywhere. That didn't work. Pull the water pump. Pull the hose down by the